Hey everyone, it's Kevin Raymond and welcome. I'm really excited today to welcome Kyle Smith, who is a coach and a clarity consultant. Welcome, Kyle. I really appreciate taking the time to join us today. Why don't you just give us a little bit about your background and we'll go from there.
Absolutely. So a clarity consultant is a it's a title that I created for myself because that is how I help impact the people around me the best.
Okay.
I find that the problem that I'm solving for is permission to create a vision that is true to them and permission to progress towards it.
Mhm.
So it's just reframing and reworking the stories that we're telling ourselves from what I like to call through what I call narrative architecture.
Great.
And it goes from non-functioning opinions to functioning opinions. That way, the words that we speak, either internally or externally, are there to help us rather than harm us.
Hmm. I like that. That's good. Um, when I was looking at your background and some of the things you actually have like a procrastination program or things like I find that that's something with my clients specifically, it's probably one of the well, close to one of the biggest things that they often deal with, right? And it's I think results from workload, overwhelm, home work balance, that kind of thing. So let's just talk a little bit about that and what your take on procrastination is and where like does it is it something that can happen later in life, or is it something you always have? Like that kind of thing. What do you think?
Ooh, I love that question, dude. That is a fantastic question. So procrastination, for context, I think that a behavior is a learned characteristic.
Hmm.
So we've learned how to behave in a certain way, whether that's in favor of what we're doing or against us, with us or against us. So we can adopt and reject the behaviors that we deem appropriate. And
Hmm.
procrastination is one of those behaviors that are a little bit more what I would think of as just it's okay to procrastinate for whatever reason. Using procrastination as a reason as to why someone is not able to get to somewhere or accomplish something
Hmm.
is not it's not an excuse, but it's permissible to a majority of people. So
Hmm.
it's like, oh, I procrastinate on it. Oh, I do too. So it's like the glorification of a poor behavior or a net negative behavior is allowing many people to hold themselves at an accepted standard rather than
Hmm.
holding themselves to a higher standard. So if procrastination is uh, a behavior and thus it is a skill, then what utility does procrastination have? So if we're thinking of what procrastination does for us,
Hmm.
then we get to break down the behaviors from there. So I put it as an example of anything where if you think of someone who is partaking in a behavior that's not exactly in their best interest, so I'll use drinking as an example because that one resonates with myself,
Okay.
then I'm using that procrastination. And even though or sorry, not having to procrastinate, but even though I consciously am aware that what I am doing is not helping me out, it
Right.
still solves a problem that I'm consciously or unconsciously aware of. So there's
Okay.
still utility. And then the way that we procrastinate varies. So it could be drinking, it could be video gaming, it could be uh, exercising, it could be some degree of, it could be anything. Like
Hmm.
the limitations are the creativity of the mind. Is like, but the thing that I recognize with procrastination is that there is an aspect to the activity we don't want to partake in, whether
Yeah.
it's someone else told us about it. So the procrastination dragon would be authority. Someone else told me I had to do this thing by this date. And what I'm going to do just to show that person is I'm going to procrastinate until the night before. And then I'm going to do such a good job that they're never going to ask me to do anything ever again. But
Right.
then we end up doing that and we finish it the night before and then we give it and it ends up being amazing.
Hmm.
Then there's also the aspect of fear. We're procrastinating doing something because we're scared of embarrassing ourselves, looking dumb, how other people, usually it's how other people
Hmm.
will perceive how well or unwell we're doing with that particular venture. So we got authority, then we got fear, and then we got it's bland. There's nothing to be enthusiastic
Hmm.
about. It's just another process. It's just another thing that needs to get done, quote unquote, needs to get done in order to progress somewhere. However, if the outcome of doing that activity is bland, we're not going to be encouraged to do it. However, if we are enthusiastic about the outcome, then we have an opportunity to make an informed decision as to whether we want to pursue the outcome that
Right.
makes the enthusiastic outcome that makes what we're doing now more enjoyable because or the opposite where we're just going to keep on doing what we've done but we're going to half-ass it.
Hmm.
It's the difference between if we're behaving like lions rather than cows. Are we grazing? Are we kind of just
Right.
like moping around doing our thing? Or are we lions where we hunt and then we feed, then we
Yeah.
relax? Just like the process of creativity. Do we create,
Hmm.
then we idealize, and then we relax so that we can have more ideas?
It's interesting. I've never like looked at procrastination with all of those aspects of it. Like probably the average person doesn't necessarily think of, for example, drinking as, kind of a part of procrastination. But what's interesting is, I think what's very common is two things for what I find anyway with my clients is it's partially imposter syndrome, and it's sometimes self-sabotage, right? So it's these kind of things, but then the way that you've explained it, it kind of that kind of infiltrates it anyway, right? So like it's kind of a habit. It's developed, right? And then what are some of the things that people can actually do? Because my understanding of it, and then what I've always sort of been told about it, or how to manage it, I guess would be a better word, is procrastination is something, in order to change it, because our brains need that kind of instant gratification. You start off, you do something simple, small, quick rewards, those types of things, right? And then you just sort of build up to being better at doing things. But then again, what you've also said, the way that you describe it, it kind of gives me thought to think that it's not, it could actually be, I don't know why that thing pops up on my screen all the time. It can
Something
actually
to do with the
be,
hand motions.
is it really? Like, I don't,
I believe so because I did
it's
something
weird.
once and then balloons came up. It's
I
pretty
know,
cool.
I was going to say it. Sometimes I get balloons.
Yeah.
um, but it's kind of like, it's almost like a choice sometimes from what you explain, that I'm going to choose to put this off because I don't want the results of that. I don't want to face that, or I don't want to be like that. So I'm not really sure if there what kind of a question was in there, but I think the majority of it is, what can people actually do to not be involved in negative procrastination?
Mm. Well, something that you said there that is interesting. The first thing that popped up into my mind, and I'll use something that you said as an example,
Hmm.
because you just like you had a good spot where I was like, oh, because it's being mindful of our words, right?
Yeah.
So the easiest thing I think would be an adjustment of expectations.
Mm.
Like if someone were to immediately like if they were listening to something and they had pen and paper like we do and we're like thinking about it,
Yeah.
it's like how can I adjust my expectations? And so that would be, for example, if we're procrastinating on a specific task, uh, then we adjust the expectations accordingly. And I think in like there's two timelines where it's a net positive behavior or a net negative behavior or decision. Each behavior is a decision. We can adjust it and it's simple. It's simple, but it's not easy because we're rewiring our brain to process things in a different way than it's used to. And our brain views that as a conceptual threat on
Hmm.
our safety. So
Right.
routine and consistency is a safety thing. So even if there's a behavior we're partaking in that's not inherently good, our brain's going to resist that change. So that's where the struggle usually comes in. So with the adjustments of expectations, imposter syndrome was an awesome one that you said. So an adjustment of expectations, if an individual is experiencing imposter syndrome,
Hmm.
it would be adjusting the expectations of what you're supposed to do on a day-to-day basis. So if we have imposter syndrome, we do not see ourselves as prepared for that degree of challenge.
Right.
So if we decrease the skill level, so we have a vision for 10, but we only know skill level 3, then we
Hmm.
can treat it like a skill tree. I like to gamify things. Like if this is a video game and
Okay.
I'm your NPC, like non-playable character, and vice
Yeah.
versa, like you're the main character of yours, I'm the main character of mine, we can realize, oh shit, I'm experiencing that fear of imposter syndrome. Why is it that I don't have, or why is it that I'm experiencing that? It's because I have not accumulated enough data that indicates I am capable of handling that level 10 boss.
Right.
So then we decrease the expectation where it's supposed to be overnight success down to a level 3. And then we build up our particular skills or behaviors or thoughts to work in conjunction with where we want to go. So adjusting the expectation to that. That ties into another thing that you mentioned while you're speaking. It was need instant gratification.
Hmm.
A need is survivability. It's heat, it's fire, it's water, it's
Right.
air. Those are the things that we need in order to survive. So what I like to do is if I'm speaking to myself and I'm writing down need instant gratification, if you say it out loud, if you feel into your body, like, how does that feel? It doesn't, for me at least, when I feel it, it's in my solar plexus, it's in my
Hmm.
gut, and it doesn't feel good. It feels out of alignment because need instant gratification is an indicator that my gratification is dependent on the external events,
Right.
right? We want
Yes.
instant gratification.
And
And so
that,
if we adjust that expectation, then we
right.
go for it. Go ahead, sorry.
I was just gonna say like that, but that is like the majority of people. It is actually their need to have that gratification, right? So
Mhm.
how do you help somebody to turn that around? So, for example, everybody has some level of procrastination. Like, I'm just not
Mhm. Of
doing that. Like,
course.
forget it. I'm not making my bed.
Yeah.
Whatever you want, right? But it does become, if you can manage it, it's great. And kind of delete, delegate, whatever you want to do. But when you can't, like, how do you help someone that is at that point where it's actually all encompassing and literally burying them in their ability to move forward?
I would probably ask them why is it that they want the outcome? Why is the outcome so important you're willing to do nothing for it?
Hmm.
So I would wonder why, or I would ask the question as to why is it that, or even if I'm reflecting, like why is it that I
Hmm.
am procrastinating although I want to accomplish X? And
Yeah.
you can fill in the blank for whatever it is. And it could be it's isolating the reasons why, because you can also have productive procrastination. And how I utilize productive procrastination is if I have computer work,
Hmm.
but instead I'm going to choose to go for a walk and listen to a podcast, technically I'm procrastinating on the computer work. However, if I were to
Still
look at my
doing.
habit stack, I'm still doing something that progresses things forward.
Hmm.
Uh, so so procrastination in itself is not a bad
Right.
thing, just like everything. Everything's energy neutral. It's
Hmm.
the intention behind why we're using it that makes it positive or negative. So procrastination could be a message from your intuition. Like if you're not intuitively into it, or if I like to break things down into the head, the heart, and the intuition, the gut. If things are not lining up and you feel like bland, then
Hmm.
there's something there's something there that is lacking. There's not joy, there's no
Right.
fulfillment. And so then the question would be, why is it that you continue to do the same thing? And in that case as well, some people could just enjoy the misery because we have a negativity or
Hmm.
bias. And what happens with the negativity bias is we are addicted to suffering. So
Right.
us enjoying our own self-flagellation, for example, where we're beating ourselves up and we're merciless rather than merciful to ourselves, people enjoy that too.
Hmm.
So procrastination could be a method of gaining attention. Procrastination could be a method of doing the laundry and a bunch of house things along the lines. Like that's a way of procrastination.
Hmm.
Um, and I think I did I answer your question on that one? I looped around a couple times and almost went deep on the tangent.
I,
My bad.
I just got caught up in that. Um, but I get, yeah, pretty much. But I guess still at the end of the day,
Mhm.
it's kind of like, is procrastination something that could be the result of the way you were brought up and,
Of course.
right? And
Mhm.
trauma and things like that. And then is it something that most people can fix themselves?
To answer the last question, yes, they absolutely
Okay.
can. Because this is going to be a fun one. So the thing with it as well, I have this theory and I tested it out on myself. Like I reflect often. So if it resonates with you, then a share for you
Hmm.
would be fucking cool. Oh, can I swear?
Yeah, we swear all
Okay,
the
cool.
time. No
Fuck
fucking
yeah.
problem.
Okay. So
Yeah.
the way that we behave is either consciously or unconsciously adopted by the people that surrounded us.
Hmm.
Oftentimes it's our parents. And between 0 and 7, that's when we're all unconscious and subconscious. We don't
Right.
have the development of our prefrontal cortex, and that's not even fully developed until 25.
Hmm.
So we're just sponges absorbing everything. So in that, when we're adults, it's our conscious thought that's getting in the way of reprogramming our subconscious conditioning.
Okay. Yeah.
So the thing as well is then it comes down to the point of past experiences. You can have a past experience, but what maintains that experience into the present is the choice of the individual to
Right.
hold on to it to a certain degree. And it could be like it could be to the point of trauma being either negative or positive, because I view trauma as an opportunity for accelerated learning.
Hmm.
So trauma could be something where you experienced an amount of joy and gratitude that you thought you were going to have heart palpitations and have a heart attack,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
But you can also experience the negative side where your heart is like you're gone through something
Hmm.
extremely difficult.
Yeah.
So to be able to translate that, it's taking yourself out of the being. So oftentimes you'll recognize where people will maintain much of their behavior from earlier on in life.
Hmm.
So in my mind, how I reworked my little system out so that I didn't need to show up as a tantruming toddler, but in like an older body
Yeah.
is, and this brings me to my theory, is that until we consciously make the decision to do so, or to do otherwise, we
Hmm.
will show up as our parents showed up for us for our inner child.
Right. Yeah.
So when it comes to a lot of the experiences, like let's say someone has like a flashback, it's like this childhood experience happened. Then they experience it as an adult. They haven't grown past or through, or they haven't, they are resting within the victim and not being a victor.
Right.
And that's a tough place to be. And by being able to by being able to translate that idea into something where we can adjust habits and
Hmm.
have permission to let go of things that
Right.
kind of just linger around, then we're able to go from there. And I was just taking a peek for it, but I have a really cool victim mentality definition as well. And if you're open to me sharing,
Absolutely.
the and this is something that works as a foundation for me to be able to remind myself to separate away from my past because I
Right.
am not my past, I am my present. I have
Exactly.
control of my present day behaviors, and maybe a thought will come in, but I am also not my thoughts. Our
Hmm.
thoughts come from our behaviors. So that was a little side tangent on that one. But the victim mentality is an acquired personality trait, so something that someone
Hmm.
acquires where a person tends to regard himself or herself as the victim of the negative actions of others, even in the absence of clear evidence. The victim mentality depends on a habitual, so duration
Hmm.
plus addiction, thought process, and attributions. So if we recognize that the victim mentality is actually something that we have adopted, then we can also adopt the victor mentality
Hmm.
because we're not one or the other. Our behaviors
Exactly.
and how we behave is going to be the indicator of which one we're moving towards.
So it has a lot to do with like your self-awareness, being present. So like if you had somebody who, if you're not, I know with me talking to a lot of people, they do hang on to the past or they worry about the future. And you try and get them to the place, or I do, to say, let's live in the present and see what we can do there, right? And then let's do this. And that way the opportunities that are out there are in front of you as opposed to something you thought you should have had or something you think you might get or worry about or whatever. So if a person is living a pretty full life in the present, that would probably help with not procrastinating.
Yes, sir.
Think so? Okay,
Yep.
good to
Yep.
know.
And I
Uh,
would think so because when we experience the most, when we're either anxious, we're in the future. When we're in the
mhm,
past, then we're depressed. And
exactly.
so the only place that we have any peace is in the present. And every day is a gift, and that's why it's known
Hmm.
as the present. But people take gifts for granted. Like at Christmas, when you're
Yeah,
a kid, you just want to unwrap the paper and
more and
then,
more.
yeah.
Yeah,
And how long until that toy is no longer being used?
yeah. About 5 minutes until they start playing in the box, and then
Exactly.
you're
It's like,
like,
why do you
"What
even
the
get this?
fuck?"
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Why do you even get this stupid toy?
Exactly. I know, right?
Yep.
What was I going to say? Um, I totally lost track of what I was going to say.
We were talking
Why don't
about
you?
peace.
What's that?
We were talking about peace, if that triggers anything.
No,
Fair
it
enough.
did. Um, I know I just totally lost it. But I did want to ask you, just give us a little bit about like your background and how you actually got involved in coaching and things like that. Like, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, for sure. So from a coaching aspect, I've only had two actual jobs where I've worked for someone else.
Okay.
Uh, Started working when I was 16. The first place I worked at was the restaurant industry, and then
Hmm.
went from dish, and then made my way up to line coach. So at that point, I was kind of introduced to a coaching kind of aspect.
Right. Yeah.
Uh, and then I was there for over 5 years, 5 years, 3 months, and 14 days to be exact.
But who's counting?
And right. And I'm not sure if you know this, but the restaurant industry isn't best known for its high quality
Oh,
level of health habits.
yes. Yeah.
So at that point in time, I was familiar with going to the gym and working out and stuff like that. However, I was stagnant in my progress
Hmm.
and I wasn't really going anywhere. And I just kind of intuitively knew that I was like, okay, I'm resisting this feeling to pursue more,
Right.
and that's silly. So my mom owned a salon and spa at that point. One of her massage therapists was dating someone who was a personal trainer, and that was my first interaction with a personal
Okay.
trainer. Then went had a couple sessions with him and realized there where I really like the concept of it, where I had a really good experience, and
Hmm.
then being a catalyst or a catalyst character to be able to
Two.
onboard in a way other
Right.
people to
Yeah.
have that positive interaction was really cool. And I'm like,
Hmm.
fuck, this is like pretty cool shit.
Yeah.
So I
Exactly.
just asked him how he did it, became a personal trainer, got my second job in a big box gym, And then I was there for a couple of years and then went out on my own afterwards. And that's
As
how
a
the
like you went
coaching
out
aspect.
as a fitness trainer.
Yes, personal
Okay.
training specifically, getting people jacked,
Yeah.
swole.
Get it up.
Yeah. And that was pretty cool. That was how everything started with
Yeah.
there. And then from
Nice.
there, I was always inspired by folks like that really help people deeper and deeper. I've always been interested in human behavior.
Hmm.
I even said like earlier on, even in my early 20s, that if I were to go, because I wasn't planning on going to post-secondary at all.
Right.
And so instead, or actually, so what I knew I would want to go for is either some sort of therapy, psychology, or psychiatry,
Hmm.
because the human mind is just amazing, and it's just like information is just coming
For
out. It's
sure.
just so cool,
Yeah.
and I think it's so cool how we can adjust our human behaviors and stuff. And the second job that I would have gone to post-secondary for is law. I think being a
Really.
lawyer would have been interesting. I think I would have
Hmm.
enjoyed the challenge of it, which I kind of get to do nowadays, but instead of defending a person, I'm defending my position on the
Right.
principles that I think are
Hmm.
I that are applicable and practical.
Right. Right.
And then basically I shifted into mostly consulting or clarity consulting because I found that even during my personal training sessions, a lot more was getting done in the mind.
Right. Yeah.
And that's where I really recognized the the side effect of the knowledge that I was acquiring for my own self-awareness, my own
Hmm.
self-actualization, my own self-transcendence, because I'm in the persistent pursuit of self-betterment, being a
Yeah.
positive contribution to the human race and to be a savage servant. So I
Perfect.
have that as my mission, that is my thought process, and
Hmm.
that's the filter that I put everything through. So going with the clarity consulting, it's just been a smooth evolution over the last
Hmm.
decade. And that's,
So
yeah, it's cool.
it's amazing, actually. And I always find, when people talk about, people, brain, psychology, and things like that, it's always, for me anyway, people like yourself that have a much more interesting concept of what that's all about, as opposed to sitting beside somebody, and there's nothing wrong with this, but sitting beside somebody that's in a chair in a suit, whatever, right? It seems so limited, right? Um, and I always laugh because there was a time in my life when I actually needed some counseling and therapy, and I remember going to one, and I went for like 5 sessions, and then on the fifth session, he just said, "Before you sit down, I just got to tell you, you stress me out too much. I can't see you anymore." I just like, what? I just thought it
That's
was
awesome.
hilarious. I'm just like, I stress you out. So yeah, step into my head. Um, so I thought it was pretty amazing. But then I've met several individuals along the way, but always individuals like yourself, you just have such an amazing concept of how it all comes together and how it all works and everything. I think it's really amazing. So you should be quite proud of yourself for being where you are, and able
Thanks,
to
man. I
like
appreciate it. I
really
received
express
that.
that.
I received that to the heart. Thank you.
Yeah, no, you can totally feel that. It's great. I love it. Um, so tell me about, like, what type of clients do you work with?
Uh, the one thing that is consistent is they have a heavy desire for change.
Hmm.
So it's I have this kind of thought process that if a person's goals become more important to me than they do to them, then we're not a good fit.
Right. Okay. That's good. That's fair.
So so that's kind of like the common denominator because
Yeah.
everyone has a mind and everyone has behaviors. So it's just coming up with the principles and strategies. And I actually kind of like having it where people can accept or they can take, they can
Hmm.
borrow, or they can reject any of my ideas and implement it in their own amalgamation of a philosophy.
Right.
So my thoughts are based off of a whole bunch of other people that have thought about cool
Hmm.
shit. I'm like, oh, I like that.
That's
Like,
great. That's great.
yeah, it's like, oh, I love that. A common denominator is that I found creativity to be the thing that I am most drawn for towards. So one of my favorite books is The Creative Act by Rick Rubin. I
Hmm.
believe The Art of Being is the
Oh
subtitle.
yeah, yeah,
That
yeah.
one was a really good one. And that one really emphasizes creativity and viewing what you do from a creative lens. And
Hmm.
uh, when we understand the power that we actually have in being able to change the trajectory or envision a future that we want, because this is another thing too, is that it takes the same amount of cognitive energy to bring the past to the present as it does to take the future to the present.
Right.
But we're just already experiencing the past, so it's easier to pull.
Hmm.
However, we can do it in reverse, where we visualize something that is so specific that we are just pulled towards it
Bringing it
and
towards
bring
you, yeah.
that into the present instead. So I think that would also help with preventing procrastination. That's one thing. But creativity, and Leonardo da Vinci's a huge, like, I'm a huge
Hmm.
fan of his kind of work as well, because I don't think that there I don't think there needs to be a limitation to the ideas and the concepts and the creation that people can bring.
Yeah.
So it's the difference between having a convergent thinking, so one problem, one
Hmm.
solution to solve that one problem, where there's divergent thinking, where there's one problem and there's multiple routes to get to the same
Hmm.
resolution. And so being able to have the curiosity and the creativity to pursue something that you could be interested in. So mine is like human behavior, it's
Yeah.
psychology. There's psychedelics in there too.
Yeah,
There's
exactly.
philosophy.
Yeah.
There's all these different aspects that tie into the character that I am. But I know that with a lens of creativity and artistry, then we get to make our own artwork in the form of the
Absolutely.
life we get to live.
Yeah.
And so I think when it comes to helping folks really dial that in, it's just seeing what they value the most and what they care for the
Hmm.
most. I have like pillars, like I have kind of a
Yeah.
pillar system where there's objectively important and subjectively important, and I call them the four F's of fate. Actually, I'll share this one because I think it could
Sure.
plant a couple seeds. But I think of it like a pyramid, and the
Hmm.
four F's of fate are the aspects of the pyramid that creates a whole being. Like
Hmm.
it's to really pull out the best version. So the two that are objectively important, it goes the first F is fitness, then it's finance, then it goes fellowship, and then fulfillment. So fitness, either physical or mental fitness, and I use
Right.
fitness specifically because health only encompasses one half of the continuum. So if we're only focusing on health, then we're trying to blind ourselves from
From the
illness
mental. Yeah.
because we don't want to address anything. But if we
Hmm.
understand that fitness is a continuum because between health and unhealth, whether it's physical or mental, then it's realizing that we are not the healthy or unhealthy. It is we are
Hmm.
the person, and we just need to become aware on which point of this continuum we are, and
Right.
then make an informed decision as to whether we want more fitness or less fitness. And then
Perfect.
we get to make a conscious decision. And most people will, when they create this logic in their own mind, it cuts down a lot of uh, the cognitive gateways that we built up over time. So if we can actually logically explain to ourselves why we're doing a thing, then those barriers fall down as well. But
Hmm.
many will go up to the barrier and then they'll put their hand on the barrier and they're like,
Yeah.
"Ooh, I
Hmm.
don't like that very much."
Yeah.
But when we're able to turn, face the monster, name the monster, then we can save ourselves.
Right.
And I think of it kind of like I don't know if it was Insidious or uh oh, I forget which one it was, but it's a series of the horror films, and
Hmm.
it's the anyways, the character that I'm thinking of in specifically is Volka, I believe. It's the nurse
Okay.
ghost.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah.
the main character had no power over that demon until she learned the name of the demon.
Yeah. I think that
When
is
she
insidious.
maybe
I think so.
could be. It starts with an
But it's
I
true
believe.
what you're saying. Like
Yeah.
that's yeah, exactly. It's interesting you have like that triangle of, the fellowship, finance, and it like you see the triangle that triangle in so many things. Like you see it in leadership, you see it in, mental health, you see it in every single thing, right? It's such a foundational experience for everything that people work in and work at. It's just it's pretty incredible. That's great. That's great. So
Thanks, man.
this has been a real pleasure. I've really enjoyed it, and you're so insightful. I love it. I really appreciate taking the time to speak with me today. Hopefully, we'll get to do this again. I would love
Oh yeah,
to
dude.
just
I'll
take it
if you're open
further.
to it, I'll have you on my podcast.
Yeah, for sure. I'd love to
Yeah,
just go
buddy.
back and forth.
Yeah, exactly. Hell
And this
yeah.
week,
Yeah.
yeah, no, it'd be
Well,
great.
wasn't
I'd
that the
I'd
same
love
last
to.
week?
Yeah,
Yes.
I know.
I get
I
week
know.
one, you get week two, and we just
Exactly. No,
pivot back
we're
and
week
forth.
one.
Yeah. Nice.
No, it's good. I would love to. Anyway, all the best with everything and enjoy the rest of the season. Are you taking some time off or?
Not until the 28th. Kendra and I are gonna be Kendra's my partner in crime.
Mhm.
She's my lady.
Hmm.
Uh her and I are going to actually she would be really cool to have on. I'll introduce you to
Yeah,
because I think it'd be
cool.
fun.
For sure.
We both really like human behavior and she's got some knowledge bombs of
Nice.
herself and
Okay,
she's
cool.
she's like my anchor. If I'm like really stuck, she
Mm,
helps me out quite a bit and vice versa. So it's like she's got some cool shit.
great.
Um, but yeah, we're gonna be going out to the mountains, go visit a
Uh,
friend of mine and
yeah.
his girlfriend,
Where
and
are
that'll
you
be it.
exactly now? Like, where do you live?
Edmonton, Alberta, Canada.
Oh my God, you're kidding. My sister lives in Edmonton.
Oh shit, no way. I
That's too
probably
funny.
well, maybe I don't know your sister. There's more people here than I anticipate,
You
but
don't want
yeah, fair enough.
to. Actually, my whole family is out west. It's very strange. They all ended up in Calgary and Edmonton area. Um, yeah, that's cool. I don't know why I thought you were in the States for some reason, but
I don't
there you
know.
go. That's good. Going to the mountains, that'll be beautiful.
It'll be cool.
Lovely. Yeah, very nice. Very nice. That's
Really
good.
pumped for it. It'll be good
Yeah.
to like relax. And I think because my buddy Calvin has he wants to go to the hot spring. There's hot springs there,
Oh
and
yeah, yeah.
as you get closer to the source, it gets hotter in temperature, obviously.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
then they have like ice dunks in there too. So
Yeah.
it'll be
Yeah, that'll
winter
be cool.
when we get there, but it'll be cool.
But it'll be cool for sure. That's awesome. Well, that's great. Like I can't wait to talk to you again, actually. But enjoy the holiday, have a great trip, and all the very best. Take care, and thanks for joining us. Just, oh my God, you know what?